Hello and welcome to our third installment of our Walk With Me podcast. I am your host, Britt Brandon, and I am super excited to be here. I am so looking forward to today's topic. Yesterday, I was doing a short installment on our 75 Hard Challenge vlog, and I really was just moved to focus the topic on do what makes your heart happy. And I have to tell you, I've been thinking about it all day yesterday and all day today, and I can't tell you how thrilling it is to live by that. And I'd like to just want to do it more each day. It becomes like this self-perpetuating positive cycle of improvement that just takes on a life of its own. And it makes you want to include more things that you love and that make your heart happy, like whether it be people or places or things. And instead of having noise, right, with, negativity and news, and, we have to have certain elements in our life, obviously, so that we can stay in the know and remain informed and be able to, make good decisions about what we do with our lives. But beyond that, it's kind of crazy if you think about how much we can allow into our brains. I saw a meme yesterday, and it was pretty cute about it was like one girl was saying to another girl, "Isn't it terrible how your social media feed is so filled with terrible news and bad people saying awful things to each other?" And the other girl was like, yeah, okay. And then it was like in her thought bubble, it was all of the things that run in her social media, and it's all like playful kittens and pet videos. And I thought it was so cute because that's what mine is. I mean, it's so funny how, excuse me, I didn't mean to cough, but we're getting over strep throat. But it's so funny how, I go on TikTok and it's like this constant stream of awesome pet videos that I love, or jump scare videos that make me laugh. And I don't have any bad news on any of my social media feeds. So it really does speak volumes about what we seek out, what we want to surround ourselves with. So it perfectly illustrates my point, though, that we want to make sure that we are incorporating as many things at every time that really help just set our soul on fire and make our heart happy. And it makes it so that the people who you're around will either gravitate towards that energy or fall away, and which works as a win-win, right? Because I have had 2 people leave my tutelage as clients citing that I was too positive. And it was funny because I had the awesome pleasure of working for a boss at one point when one left, and he could tell that I was like, what? I'm a great coach. Why would she not want to work with me? And he was like, do you think you do a good job? And I said, yes. And he said, are the majority of your clients happy? And I said, yes, absolutely. And he was like, then don't change what you're doing because of one person. We have to start thinking about majorities. And, when we are thinking about ourselves and thinking about what we're doing and thinking about the people who we affect and impact and whatever, for the most part, most people, it doesn't really matter. But if it's 1%, that's not enough of a percentage to sway you in any direction in terms of changing or modifying anything. But when we surround ourselves with people and we're being true to ourselves, this is stemming off of yesterday's podcast on the topic of being true to yourself and surrounding yourself with people who see you. When you do that, the people who don't jive with your personality will automatically fall away. They just don't, they repel it almost, which is awesome, because those people, like if I had continued working with that client, it probably would have been disastrous, because not only could I probably not have helped her, I probably, just didn't resonate with her. So she wouldn't, see me as the, as like the figure that I need to be seen as in order to be able to help somebody as their coach. And so when that is fractured or just not even in place to begin with, it's impossible, right? That's like, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to work. So and not only would that have had, but it probably would have been really frustrating the whole time, because she would have thought that she was committed to something that wasn't working. And I would probably think, here I am committed to something that's not working too. So think about how many things were saved in terms of sanity just by even having that one example, fall away. So I don't know. In thinking about this though, I've been reflecting on how many changes I've implemented since becoming sober, right? And having to figure out who I was, because before that, I was not only not being my authentic self to other people, I wasn't being my authentic self to myself. And so it was really alarming, very scary, and very sad to come to the awareness that I didn't know who I was, what I liked to do. I remember that being one of the biggest and saddest things, was that I didn't know what I liked to do. I mean, I knew I liked to read and I knew I liked to write, but beyond that, I didn't know what activities I really loved, because they had always been what everybody else wanted to do. And so I just kind of conformed to that and thought those things were my things that I like to do, but they weren't. So when I had the option and opportunity to start doing things that set my soul on fire, I didn't even know where to start. So it was a really eye-opening experience to see myself for the first time, kind of like a blank canvas, that I could start figuring things out and start doing things that I loved. And so it kind of kicked off this series of, obviously trial and error of, okay, try this, I don't like that, try that, I don't like that, try this, okay, we do, different variations of it, blah, blah, blah. But as these years have gone on, it has been really cool to not only be sober, so I'm able to think clearly and make decisions that I can stand by, right? Because I'm not worried about am I just making this decision because I'm intoxicated, or because, I'm in that back and forth of intoxicated or recovering from being intoxicated or in the process of getting intoxicated. So it was always one or the other, some wild ride among those three stops. But now to be able to make a decision, stick to it, knowing no, this is best for me, whether it be with boundaries or with new things or with, old things that I'm want to try, or, want to see if they fit in my life again, and then be able to make a really kind of sound judgment call about whether to keep them or whether I just don't have time or space for them anymore. And that's the thing, is when we have things that set our soul on fire, that make our heart happy, it is so fun to do them, and so fun to, if it's people, it's just so awesome to be with them. And if it's, activities, it's so fun to do them. I have to tell you, so I love writing, right? I mean, I could get lost in writing. I could lose, today, I had to pull myself away from a project that I started at 4:30 this morning. And I mean, I am just engrossed in, perfecting it and writing it, and then going back and editing and revising it and doing all, and then, I'll get an idea and I go and add it to it. Or, I'll change a piece that's a little bit further back to be in better alignment with something new that I thought of. So it's this really fun process that I can just get lost in. And I was thinking yesterday that I have a few of those now that that have changed who I want to be, what I want to do. I've heard that you have 5 careers in one lifetime. And I look back, and so one thing that I want to do forever is write books. But one career that I've had is write for Simon & Schuster. And so I was able to write 23 books with them that I loved and had a ton of fun doing. And it really just, was an incredible experience across the board. And then currently I have 4 jobs. So, and that's not including being a mom. So we joke that I have 4 jobs, 3 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 cat. But I love each one of them. Like, each one of my current jobs is one of my favorite things to do. Like, I love doing them. And so it makes it so that I don't feel like I'm going to work every day. It's stuff that I like to do and jobs that I like to perform, and that I am having fun while I'm doing them. So it's kind of like a win-win-win. But when I thought back to, these 5 careers that I'd like to have in my lifetime, my life is also going to be changing dramatically in just 6 short years. And that's when my youngest, JD, will be going off to college. And so it's crazy to think, like, okay, in 6 years, I am going to have a very dramatic shift in my household where I just won't have kids there full time. Obviously, I want to be able to have them as much as I can, but they won't probably live with me full time. So I want to make sure that I set myself up for success by thinking ahead to what I want to do and what I want to be, when I grow up. And so it's so cool to be having these insights about, doing things that set your soul on fire and make my heart happy, because now I'm doing things with a little bit more freedom, right? The kids are older and can help me by, helping themselves a lot. My oldest drives, and my middle one is super self-sufficient, and my youngest is 13, so he contributes to messes and then helps clean them up. So it's a very different stage of the game, and a very different kind of environment than when I was writing books before. So it really is like a different career. And then with this time, I would like to have, the element of public speaking, making sure that that's a really predominant feature in my, portfolio. And so there's all of these different things that I want to be able to have, kind of like, just preparing not only for now, but to set myself up for success when this change of life happens, when everybody moves out. So, it's just an awesome thing to think that we can enrich our lives so much by doing things that make our heart happy. And another thing that I was thinking yesterday too is, it's funny when you're doing things that make your heart happy and you remember back on times when you were not. And so one specific time, it was really, really a hard time, but it was right after I had gotten my DUI. And for those of you who do not know my story, I struggled with alcohol seriously after a pretty wild divorce, after an extremely abusive marriage, and culminating in us moving out. And after being homeless for a little while, my 3 kiddos and I moved into our very own little townhome. And so my ex-husband broke into our home on Christmas Eve and just battered one of our family friends pretty severely, hospitalized him, and did so by pretty violent acts that my kids witnessed. And this was all happening at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Christmas Eve night, with Christmas Eve festivities and multiple kids at our house and everybody having fun. So it was very scary and very traumatizing. And so my ex-husband went to jail following that. And so it was a very crazy time. And in the time between him being breaking into our home and being sentenced, that time was scariest. So living in constant fear, I can't even begin to describe, but my go-to was just to numb myself. I did know better. I should say I did know better, and I chose not to do the right thing. And so anyway, we ended up getting a DUI. That was the most incredible, miracle, life-changing experience that set us on a path of incredible success that I would never have put in place had certain things not happen the way that they did. So I'm grateful for it every single day, and so are my kids. So with all of that being said, it was pretty crazy to have the change of mindset, but also while we were engaged in the year following that DUI, I had to have a job that was so low paying that I literally still have one of the paychecks to remind myself that we endured a pretty insane time of, I just needed a job, and I just got a job, and it worked for us at the time, but it was horrible and awful, and the people there were sad and mean to each other, not to me, but it was a really toxic environment. And then the fact that we were in the red every month because the pay was so low was it was hard. But I learned so much from that job, just about what I can do in order to be able to, persevere and just get things done that we need to get done. So I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. But I was thinking back on it, and it's funny. So while I was working there, life was so bonkers and out of alignment with what I wanted. And so that made me that much more determined to make a change. And I remember writing on a sticky note. It was a bright pink sticky note. And I remember writing, we moved the kids to North Carolina move the kids to North Carolina. And so I would stare at this sticky note day in and day out. And sure enough, it got to the point where one day I was like, I wonder what I would need to do in order to make that happen. I called my lawyer, and she was like, okay, well, it's going to take some serious steps because now you have to get permission and blah, blah, blah. So, but it put everything in motion. And I think back now to, where we were then, and that I knew what I wanted to do, right? I knew I wanted to move us. But beyond that, I knew I didn't want to do that job. I wanted to do something that did set my soul on fire. And so that discomfort and misalignment and all of the, days that it was going through the motions of trying to, just keep doing what we had to do, right? Until we were able to do what we wanted to do. Absolutely incredible experience. I mean, just above and beyond. I learned so much about myself. My kids were able to see so clearly that you have to, everybody has responsibilities. And even if you don't like what you're doing, sometimes you just got to do it. And, you have to have a smile on your face while you're doing it too. It's not just about getting it done. you can't make everybody around you miserable. And I mean, they learned so many things, and we even talk about them till today. And it's so crazy too, because when I look back on that scenario, the next job I got, I thought was a godsend. I mean, it really was. And it made it possible for us to, get the next job. That was even more incredible. And then the next job, that was even more incredible. And so with every single one, I was able to do more of what I wanted to do with less of, the negatives that I didn't like, that I had figured out I didn't like in the previous job. So it was almost like every new position made it so that I was able to tailor what I was looking for and make that happen. So beyond the, moving through the motions of doing what needed to get done, focusing my efforts on trying to get to where my heart would be happy, there was so much goodness learned along the way that I was able to really use to my benefit that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So not only is it important to, focus on doing things that make your heart happy, but man, is it important to reflect all along the way on how those times that were not awesome, I think back to, I don't know if I would appreciate my house the way I do if we hadn't lived in our car. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think I would appreciate security for the way that I do now if we hadn't lived in such insecurity. I don't think I would appreciate peace the way that I do today if we hadn't lived in, such chaos. And so it's so fantastic to have that mindset shift where, even though you had to go through some pretty crazy stuff, right? And nobody ever would have chosen to do it. But man, did we learn a lot along the way. And we have such a great life after in so many ways that we just wouldn't have afterward or before otherwise. So I thought that was all pretty interesting. And so back to, or I guess I should say finishing this up because I only have 7.5 more minutes. I wanted to say that one of the things that sets my soul on fire now is doing this with you. And I can't tell you how fun it is to hear feedback that, somebody loved something on the blog, or thought something was so interesting on the vlog, or thought, a point was made that resonated with them here in the podcast. And this is what I want to do. So I know I had said it yesterday in terms of things are kind of formulating to the point where it's like, okay, we can see that this is what I want to do because this sets my soul on fire. But yesterday when I was meeting with my counselor, he was like, so then how does that work with like putting it into place? And that's the next step. So I'm really excited to, I am an idea person, and I am not always a good executor. So I love being able to come up with ideas, and implementing them is such fun. So I'm a great to-doer. It's just about the brainstorming of getting things in place and having them work on paper too. So I'm getting to learn some awesome new things that I'm really, really excited about. And I have some amazing people in my life who know all about this process stuff of actually putting things into place to execute. So I feel pretty confident, but I do know that no matter what, it all boils down to do what makes your heart happy. And I read something today in a completely random place. I think I was watching a YouTube video, and there was a thing that said, do what makes you happy and you'll never work a day in your life. And it was like, this is, we listen to it, we hear it, and I think we poo-poo it sometimes. And sometimes we just think like it's not possible to shift or to change things, or and sometimes it's not, you know, in that moment. So we have to wait, right? And I am the least patient person, so I think I've grown a ton in that area, because now I'm fine with just, it is what it is. We'll just wait it out until it is what it is, where we can see things change. But for the most part, it's pretty wild to think sometimes. So one of my bosses has this awesome saying where he'll be like, if you come up against a challenge, awesome, tell me what it is. Like, let's figure it out. Because like the sticking points are sticking points for other people too. But if you can get around them, which there's always a way, then you're ahead of everybody else. And so it's just, again, it's funny to be surrounded by people who give me these like different perspectives, these shifts in mindset that make me look at problems or challenges as opportunities, or, you know, these things that are cool instead of daunting. So anyway, what I want to be able to leave you with today is to go through your day, and instead of focusing on if you are doing things that you're not wanting to do, right? Because we all do some things that we're like for some reason I'm thinking of little kids' birthday parties, when you have little kids, and it seems like, you know, when you have like a birthday party every weekend, sometimes multiple, that's so sad. It makes my heart sad to think back on those times. But anyway, when your weekends aren't yours, or you're doing a job that you're like, why am I here? It's almost like you can use those as opportunities to think, what would I rather be doing? Like, what would set my soul on fire? What would make my heart happy right now? And it's so cool to start thinking about things like, I would love to, you know, take a cooking class, or I would love to be cooking right now. Okay, so what would that look like if you were doing that in, you know, some new cool way? Okay, cooking classes or cooking demos, or, you know, who knows, just as an example. But building things, like my son loves to build stuff. He can get lost for hours in building things, and you can see his mind at work. And it's really just fascinating to just see his heart be so happy just building something, you know? And so with everybody, there's different things, like back to my writing, where I literally just this morning, I started, it was like 5:10, and I looked up again and it was 7:45, and I was like, oh my gosh, is that the right time? And it was just so neat to be able to know, like, yeah, this is what makes my heart happy. And I want to do this every single day, like in whatever capacity. Sometimes I journal, sometimes I write a book. Today I had an idea for a new book, and it was like, I could do this all day, every day, and be so stinking happy. And so I am going to do that. And I am going to make sure that I'm able to do that, to make space for that. And I'm just looking forward to being able to make more of, you know, that time and other times that make my heart happy become more and more consistently part of my day. So I want to encourage you to do the same, and, you know, make it a priority to figure out what sets your heart on fire and makes your heart happy, and do more of that. Okay, I'm signing off. I hope you have an amazing day. Sending you lots of love, virtual hugs, and I'll talk to you soon.